The numbers are in and they are staggering. The White House's Make Our Children Healthy Again report shows our kids are facing the biggest mental health crisis in US history. I'm Dr. Roseann. My regular people know we've been talking about this mental health crisis for as long as I've been doing this podcast. And I think this is a really important report because it really helps us to understand exactly what's happening. So, we're going to talk about the numbers. We're going to talk, of course, about what do we do about this? Because some of this may be really shocking for people who really just aren't looking at the research. I mean, it's been there. And let's talk about the scope of this crisis and what do we know about what's happening with kids, because these numbers are really shocking. And I think that it's going to be a wake up call for parents, educators, and policymakers, because for people that like myself who've been doing this for over 3 decades, this isn't a surprise. And I think this is one of the most urgent mental health reports in recent years. We did have the US Surgeon General coming out and saying parents are in distress. And I think it reveals the hidden costs about food, technology, stress, and disconnection, and how this is fueling a generation of people with mental health struggles and clinical diagnoses, right? So let's talk about some of these numbers because you should be freaked out, right? I'm a mother of a teenager and young adult, and there are a lot of numbers related to that. So teen depression has doubled. 1 in 4 girls has had a major depressive episode in 2022. So you're a parent of a teenage girl, you get a 1 in 4 chance that your daughter has had a major depressive episode. And you may say, not me. No, that's not the way it works. These are hidden issues, right? We don't really know until they become a crisis. Suicide death is now the second leading cause of teenage death. It has raised 62% since 2007. We're going to get into some of the reasons why this is happening. And please, stay until the end and we talk about what's happening. Loneliness is an epidemic. 73% of young adults report loneliness, and 1 in 7 young men have no close friends. I'm going to tell you this is very true. Okay. Developmental disorders are rising. Please know we are not getting better at diagnosing it. You can listen to other things. 1 in 31 children by age 8 are diagnosed with autism, 1 in 10,000 in 1960. Yeah. I wasn't around, but since 92, I've been around. ADHD, over 10% are diagnosed, with 1 million more diagnosed in 2022 versus 2016. Let's talk about medications because we are medicating the shit out of everybody, but nobody's getting any better. ADHD prescription stimulant rose 250% from 2006 to 2016, but no improvement in long-term outcomes. We know that through the research, right? 6 months, 3 years, 10 years out, these kids don't look any different than non-medicated peers. I know you think so, and you keep switching your meds. Of those of you that are listening, this is just about education, no shaming. Teen antidepressant use increased 14-fold from 1987 to 2014, even though therapy is equally or more effective long term. Antipsychotic use rose 8-fold from 19 in a 20-year period, and it's often prescribed off-label. I mean, God forbid, like I remember a colleague of mine getting in trouble for using peppermint essential oils on a cotton ball in a classroom. But let's put some antipsychotic on kids, right, off label, and nobody's going to get upset about that. What is happening? Like, why is this happening? Let's talk about these hidden drivers of dysregulation. We have dysregulation of nervous system. We have dysregulation of behavior. We have dysregulated homes. I mean, it's a hot mess for a lot of people. And let me tell you, this is across income. It's across family makeup. I mean, I deal with people all over the United States, all over the world, and I just hear just a hum of stress for everybody. Part of what's happening, right, according to this report, they found the major drivers were poor diet. 70% of kids' calories come from ultra processed foods that are over processed are not calorie dense foods, and they don't provide nutrients to the brain and body. You don't need to be a medical professional to know that one. You put good stuff, you fuel your engine, right? You don't put my car needs premium gas. If I put the regular gas in, it's not going to work, right? In the same way. Environmental chemicals like pesticides, microplastics, they are endocrine disruptors and linked to neurodevelopmental disorders and mental health issues. They certainly are inflammatory, sedentary lifestyle. I think 40% of American adults are completely sedentary. 40%. That's not even kids. Chronic stress, sleep deprivation, and technology overuse. I'm going to give you a little numbers on that. And over medicalization. I didn't even practice saying that. So heavy reliant on stimulants, antidepressants, antibiotics without addressing root cause issues like environment, lack of skills, parenting, nervous system regulation. And, it's good to have these things spelled out in an official government report, regardless of what you think about, all of the politics that are going on. This is stuff that has been talked about for decades. I certainly have been talking about it for decades and talk a lot about it in my last book, It's Going to Be Okay. And so when we are really thinking about kids and really what's happening, I think what this report is telling us that kids are struggling with behaviors, are struggling with emotions. These are not kids that are bad kids. I recently had somebody, criticize me on YouTube, some mom who I've banned her from my channel, and was like, kids don't need more love, they need more discipline and all this other stuff. And I thought to myself, wow, there's people out there in the world that don't realize that, we have to approach kids with kindness and love and connection. And even in our world, when parents are doing a beautiful job of doing that, I want you to realize there are other things driving kids' dysregulation. So let's talk about what are some warning signs. First of all, if you have a change in your child's behavior in any way, shape, or form, they become more irritated or more withdrawn, or there's a change in friendships, or they don't want to go to school, or they just seem different. Pay attention to that. Okay. And yes, some of that is normal, right? I have a kid that just entered high school and I can see a change. I also see some things I don't like, including not eating as much. And the Hodges are really thin and they need to eat a lot. They just do. That's the way it works. And so your performance isn't going to be as well. Now you say to yourself, well, you're talking about food. Well, food fuels your brain. So we have to look at what's happening in our own environment and have conversations. You don't just ask them things and they tell you. Kids talk to you when you connect with them and you spend time with them. And I think it's becoming harder for families who are working extraordinary hours, but we need to pay attention signs of overstimulation and signs of understimulation. Just because your kid is having a hard time focusing does not mean they have ADHD, people. It's just ridiculous how everybody comes to me and thinks they have ADHD with no real history of it. It's just all of a sudden they're having a hard time paying attention. It can be anxiety. It can be overload. I was talking to a mom at the soccer thing. We're new to sports. I was like, we're nerds. We don't do sports, but we're doing it. And she was telling me she had multiple kids. Her kid was doing a sport that required like twice a week for them to do sports and things until 10 o'clock at night. And I was like, how are they eating? It's not enough sleep. What was it like for them? And she was like, oh, it's horrible. And I was like, wow, why did they do it? Me and my kids, we'd be like, forget that. Think about what is happening with your kid and don't ignore signs. The signs are much more subtle. Your kid is not going to come to you and say, I'm depressed. I have OCD. I'm anxious. The behaviors are going to be there. Look for changes and don't, treat it like the Spanish Inquisition. Spend time, connect, and then think about solutions. This technology is really disrupting nervous systems. We can go on and on and on and on, but what we do know is that the average is about 9 hours a day of non-school screen time. And heavy media use, social media use over 3 hours a day, right, according to research, doubles the risk of anxiety and depression. Girls face 4 times the risk of having anxiety and depression as a result of overuse of technology than boys. Wow. Okay. We're starting to see gender differences, right? What can you do? You can have tech-free zones. You can absolutely demand and shut off, which is what we do, the phone so they can't be in the room. And you have to have rituals that you are displaying for your kid. I have lots of episodes on this. We can go in there. What do we do, right? We're talking about kids. 70% of kids are eating processed food. They're spending 9 hours a day on their devices, non-school time. Holy cow. That we have a huge rise in medication usage and neurodivergence. And you're a parent and you're like, oh my God, Roseann, I'm facing all of these things. What do I do? Well, number one, resilience is the antidote. Okay. And it is the most powerful protection for right now and your child's entire future mental health and all the generations that come after that against anxiety, depression, OCD, and suicide risk. This is exactly why I introduced regulation first parenting. You're the first to hear about it. There's an episode that's going to come out after this. But calming our nervous system comes before everything, right? Before, device time, before homework, before discipline, correction, all these things. Nothing can happen learning, attention, love unless you are regulated. And we are moving to an increasingly dysregulated society. It is shocking to me what is happening in the world and how there's a hum of irritation and violence and stress and how we need to protect ourselves. What we need to do, and the core principle, right, of regulation first is, the brain is calm, kids can learn, kids can cope. When your brain is calm, you can move from co-dysregulation, a term I coined, and to co-regulation, right? What are practical strategies you need to do right now? So the first thing is, if you're in a dysregulated home, pause. Take a minute and reset your nervous system. It's as simple as breath, doing diaphragmatic breathing, right? Don't breathe out of your chest, breathe out of your belly, doing a 4-7-8 breath 3 times in a row, like 10 times a day until you calm your ass down. Go for nature walks, listen to, calming music, even though I do love me a good disco music, quiet games, things that are calm. Your nervous system needs to power down some of the time. And I'm always super honest with people. I couldn't be busier. I don't even tell my friends all the things I'm doing because they would freak out for me, right? Um, I recently had a psychic reading and my people came across and were like, "We're very concerned about the amount of things you're doing." And I was like, "Yeah, but tell me how it's all gonna work out." But right now, what am I doing? I got my PEMF in my pocket. I will do breath work. I will do lots of things throughout the day to counter it. And this is just a temporary time of being really busy. So we must reset our nervous system. You cannot run on empty. You will have problems focusing. You will lead to anxiety, depression, will lead to autoimmune diseases. The list goes on, people. Stress is the number one cause of physical and mental health problems, right? We all think anxiety, depression, OCD, ADHD, like it's all genetic. It's not, people. It shows up over compounded stress. I'm sure all my ADHD people will be pissed at me. But there are a lot of reasons. Real ADHD is a difference in the brain, but our attention can be impacted in the same exact way from those other things, and you need to pay attention to that. Having routines, right, in the family and having co-regulation moments. You are the anchor for your child. You need to continue to be the anchor for your child, and that means you got to get it together. And you need to do this and role model it and live it and put this in your routine. And this is how we move from co-dysregulation to co-regulation, and we build resilience. Every child, every family, regardless of the level of dysfunction, regardless of the level of trauma, can do this. I know you can. It's those small, consistent changes that build lasting change. Parents aren't powerless. You really absolutely can do this. So this is an alarming report, and hopefully this gives you the inspiration to make those small daily habits. Start with one thing. If today you're walking away saying, I've got to pause before I interact with my child, pause to breathe. That is the thing you're going to do. Do it for 7 days, ideally 30, and watch the change happen.
For insights and solutions, we'll subscribe to our Dysregulation Insider, and it will show up in your inbox every week.